everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai.
In the sense that I have a branch that splits into two shoots in here, so I'm probably going to cut this thing off right about here this fall. I've taken my knob cutter and I've gotten rid of some of that. So I just put them on the bottom, growing upwards into the bag. We fill it up with trees and then we water as we need to. Try to get rid of those air pockets. Welcome to part 2 of March Madness, everyone. It is still March. It is still the afternoon of yet another snowstorm. It started as rain, and I'm still down here in the plant room looking at some trees. And my second tree for March Madness is my Crepe Myrtle that I purchased at a bonsai auction, Minnesota Bonsai Society auction. And it's in a plastic pot, growing pot. It's been cut down to show off the nabari a little bit. So this isn't a perfect tree by any nature, or any stretch of the imagination, but I wanted a tree. I wanted a Crepe Myrtle, so I purchased this one at the auction. I was out in New York City, Brooklyn, with my brother last year on my 50th birthday, and he took me up to upstate New York. We went up to the Woodstock area, and we stayed at a Airbnb that had a beautiful Crepe Myrtle out in the front lawn. And I said, all right, that's gonna be my next goal. I want that tree. I want a tree like that as a bonsai. So here I am. So this is what I got. So this one's been through a few major cuttings. We got some dried up cut paste right there. We got a big cut paste right there, and cut right there, and cut up top. So this was a much taller tree, and as you can see now, it's got some bigger here and a little bit thicker branches here. It's got a little bit of a gnarly trunk, which again sometimes I think is pretty cool. May not be the perfect nabari shape that we're looking for. It's got a little bit of a rounded cone down here, but depending upon the angle, it looks kind of cool. So from this angle, you see more of that taper here, so I'm hoping that it'll develop into a nice tree. Now, right in the front part of it here, there's this little dimple in here. So I don't know if I'll have that as my nabari. It almost looks like these little big root structures are growing over something down in there. I won't know until I take out this pot, but I'm assuming it's all grown together and it's just kind of clumpy and gnarly. And we will find the best front and kind of work with what we've got. And we'll cut back these damaged areas later on. But right now, I just want to get this thing into a pot. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing moving. So it's not securely in a pot by any wires. So I'm going to go ahead and take it right out, and we're going to start to do our thing. So we're going to get rid of some of this dirt soil and put it into some bonsai soil. So we got a lot of work ahead of us here. So as I'm digging down in this pot that is in from my cold frame, can you hear the scraping? I still have a little bit of a chunk of ice down here. So I'm gonna have to be patient with this tree and just get the top surface out right now. And I'll have to let it sit in my plant room for a little bit longer, and as it softens up, I'll be able to get rid of more of the dirt. Now, I'm not going to completely bare root this Crepe Myrtle. I just want to get it down to a size that I can comfortably put it into a pot, so I don't need to get rid of all the roots, or even half of the roots. I might look at probably about a third of the roots for this Crepe Myrtle this time around. But I have to be careful not to damage these roots, and I also don't want to throw a bunch of hot water on here to shock the system at all. But I do have some water that's in the garage that's air temperature, which is about 37 degrees in the cold frame, or about 39 to 40 degrees in the cold frame. So I have some cold water that I could put on here to loosen this up a little bit. But what I'll do is I'll just let this sit and we'll work on a different tree, because I was going to work on 2 trees for this part 2 of March Madness. The Crepe Myrtle was a little bit too frozen to work on, just in a couple of spots. So we're going to work on our dwarf Hinoki Cypress. We got some wires in there. We're going to repot this guy. This one's much drier right now. So I have to decide what kind of pot I'm going to put it in. Typically we don't put a pine tree in a glazed pot. Sometimes I put them in pots just because it's the only pots that I have. So I have had some of my pines in a glazed pot a time or two. But I have a lot of training pots I can put this in. They're plastic, but they're going to just be good for just trying to get more growth and making sure this thing stays alive and stays healthy. The pot that it came in is a nice pot. It's a nice ceramic, nice and thick and sturdy and well made. Again, from Brussels Nursery. And then, again, if we look at the pot, if we just look to put it back in the same pot, it certainly could fit in there. This is a very deep pot, so we could go with a shallower pot. And we could even go with a smaller pot if it was a small enough root ball. We could even put it in something like this. That's a little bit too small. I do have this pot, which is the same size but a little shallower. So a little depth difference there. And that might help grow those roots out wider. And I can use this for one of my bigger trees. So that's a possibility. It has this nice little movement over here. Kind of disappears a little bit here and kind of curves this way. Can't see it at that angle, of course, but you can see it there. If you go this way, it has that nice movement here, and then here's a first branch, or we'll cut this one off and this becomes the first branch right here, and that'll thicken up. This could be a sacrificial branch that has helped to get this thick. I could leave it on for the rest of this growing season to keep thickening the branch, and then you have this as your primary branch in the future. Or even cut this one off and make this your future branch, or over here. But it definitely has a lean that way. This way doesn't look as pretty, doesn't look as nice. It just seems to kind of naturally want to go this way. You put that in a pot over on this side and you have your slanting style. I wouldn't put it over here, and put it over there. So looking at my pots, I think the pot it was in was way too big, too deep. And I have rectangle plastic training pots, but I also had one square one left. So I got a nice square pot, fits the size of the tree much better. Still probably too deep, but this will grow some new roots hopefully if we keep it alive. And we'll have some nice growth here. And I'll put it at this angle right here. However I get that thing in there to show some movement here with that tree. So I'm going to put some wire in there so we can go ahead and put this thing in. I got this tree almost to the third left on this pot and a little bit past halfway. I got it secured in the pot and I'm gonna keep it right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill it in. With some Bonsai soil, and we'll go ahead punch down the soil, get rid of those air pockets. We have a little bit of a slant going up towards the right. There's a little bit of flare right here on the trunk and the surface roots here that I hope this develops into a nice little look, and hopefully some develop back here a little bit too. But I got the widest part of the branch when you look head on. This is a little bit tilted in the back. We can twist it next time we pot it, but we just want to make sure that we're going to keep it alive. Let's give it a nice bath. Those roots have been dry. We want them to be nice and wet. I'm going to put this back into the cold frame. I was considering keeping it in a plant room, but I'll probably keep it in the cold frame for a couple more weeks. So there we go. We're dripping like crazy. And see, that's not even a bad front either. Is that what I was expecting to do? See, now I'm confused because that even looks okay as well. So that's the nice thing about this repot. I got lucky. That's what's nice about it. I got lucky. So we got a nice little path this way here with this front root going back this way. We got some nice movement there. It's a little more hidden from this side. The tree leans this way though. Here it leans to the left, but almost away. Now, I think that's what I was thinking about for the front. Yeah, I like that. It's over off to the right, shooting to the left. We could have this tree as counterbalance. This could get rid of some of the negative space. Make this one a little bit shorter and maybe wire it down a little bit. So now we have to take a peek and see if we can make any cuts. All right, so I have a leaning tree. I don't want to do too much to this. However, I do know that the roots, as dry as they were, they might be a little stressed. I don't want those roots that now have, we've pruned some of the roots, cut them back. I don't want it to have to support this huge canopy if the roots are a little bit delicate. So I will prune a few branches just to help out. Of course, I don't want to create too much stress either on the top branches as well. So my first original thought with this is I do want to get rid of this massive. We got a nice little path here. It kind of comes up and it wiggles up here, comes towards the viewer, and back here there's some branchings back here that we can't see. And I think we almost have the risk back here of reverse taper. There's a lot of things growing right here, and this gets too thick up here. We have fat down here, medium here, and it stays medium for a long time. We don't have any reverse taper there. So I think I want to get rid of that branch. Now I'm just going to peek in here closer to see there's just a lot of growth in here. And I feel comfortable doing that. I'm going to cut it back here first. A sizable chunk of that one. You see it opens up that tree a lot. Much more open. I'm going to get rid of some more now that I see where the cut line is. Okay. And we'll get that healed up over time. And not too bad of a cut, especially when you're looking through some branches. Blocks it a little bit. From the back you won't even see that cut, so if that becomes the front, that's kind of nice there. But what I'll want here is this branch right here to become the new leader possibly. The other possibility we talked about is if you see in here, we cut it down to here and this becomes the new leader. And then we have a nice curve up here and then a little bit more movement back there. I don't know if I want to cut that back today. I think I will hold off and make sure that this tree is going to stay alive and grow before I do some of that major kind of cutting. But we do have a whole bunch of branches coming up here that we just do not need. It's just crowded out up here. So if this becomes the new leader back here, I want that to not be grow. We don't want to grow in a great big knob of branches right here. So again, this is one of 4 branches back here, so I'm cutting that one off. If I go back in here deeper, there's another one in there. Super little, we don't want that one, we don't want this one. Too many branches right there. There. Now that's cleaned up. If we see this branch right here, we can twist this up here and get some branch movement there. So now this makes it look like a great big double wide tree with this branch growing way up here. I don't want that one up there at this point. So I'm going to directionally prune this one and put it back to here. Still has this tall one back here, so I'm going to branch that one. Back to there right now. And we're always trying to get some kind of triangular shape here. Right now it's a little broom toppy, so we're going to figure out how we can make this look a little bit less broom toppy of a tree. And again, if this is truly my front, I'm going to have to wire this over this way. And now I have kind of a room and kind of like this. So I would shorten up these branches here and we'd have kind of that triangle shaped tree with this becoming the new leader. I'll leave this one right here for now. These right here to kind of cover up our wound. But these two can come down like this with a little bit of wiring. Then we would just shorten the length of these guys right now. now if I have this coming back over here, it's my first primary branch. I've got a nice heavy other pattern right here going on right now. So if you can see within my tree, I've got boom, 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 walking up that tree really, really nicely. This one could be bent back towards the back someday. This one can be brought up a little bit more forward right here. And if I do bring that down like this, leave this branch there or cut it off. And I got some nice ramification down here already. Split into smaller chunks. I'll get that right there. We may want to cut one of these smaller branches off just to make a little bit more movement. Down the road I can see this being the first branch, this being the second, and this being the third. So these two could go right here and here. Don't know if I'm going to do that today again because I don't want to create too much stress for this tree. We got a whole bunch of trees up here now, or branches up here that we've got super close together. We have a nice branch here. This Y's out really nice, so we got boom, kind of boom, boom, boom. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one out of here. Excuse me, how to scare the cat away. This one's too close. This one's right on that one right there. Just clear up. What I'm cutting now is making sure I don't have all these inner branches crowding out some of the tree so we can't see it. So if there's a little one growing here and here and here, all these little ones we just kind of pluck out. Just too much activity going there. And again, every time we're looking at this, we're trying to find branches that kind of go every other, like a stepping pattern. You get these little ones out of the way. So these two are competing right now for the leader. This could become the leader. Right here, back here, that looks really like a nice option for me. Has nice movement. This is still straight up, but then it comes this way. I'd like it to go back that way. So again, we're just basically opening up some of these inner branches. This right here had a whole bunch of little branches in there, and I just cut some of them out so we could see more of maybe some future pads developing. And some of these other areas are just thin. But again, if this is the front, right about here, we got this whole thing in the way, so that's going to be coming over here. This guy right here would have to come down a little bit. We'd have a couple different pads here. This one might even just come off right now because it's just facing the viewer. Too much clutter right here facing the viewer. We can't see that trunk line very well. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to cut this one off right now because that's just in the way. And we put this down here, and we get rid of this maybe over here. Now we have our trunk line. This guy can come over here. We have kind of our work done. So again, I'm going to want this triangle shape. So if I do bring this down here, we got zoom, zoom. So this is some recycled wire that I just used when I unpotted these. So I'm going to go ahead. I am going to put some wire on this guy. And then proceed to bend this branch this way and this way. Go this way and this way with this branch. And then we'll twist it there. And then this one is going to be a little bit big for this branch. Back that off and retry that. I'm a little bit too far away, so. Alright, so that one's going to be twisted this way and down. Got a little little gap there, as it turned out. I'm going to cut off my extra wire here. Now I have a little bit of more of that triangle shape. So we have coming down here, going up to that triangle shape, and we're just, again, we're repotting this, so I just want to make sure it stays alive. I could go move this one as well, but I think I'm just going to wait and just see what it does this year. March Madness continues. We got some cleaning to do. We let this crepe myrtle sit overnight. Let's see if it is unfrozen and we can get the rest of this dirt off of there. So I just gave this a little bit of a bath to kind of get rid of some of that inner dirt on the inside, because this is one massive root structure right here. So I'm guessing that this tree has not been repotted for quite a long time. It's got a very impressive root structure as far as the quantity of roots, but I don't think it's been spread out real recently to get that real nice radial root pattern. I think it's been tied up in here and in that nursery pot for several years. So I think it was a good thing to go ahead and get this thing into a new pot and to spread out these roots. So I have another plastic training pot, because I don't have a pot big enough to fit this tree in either at the moment. But this fits in here quite nicely. There's room for the roots to grow, and I haven't even trimmed some of the roots yet. And the trunk line is pretty good to the pan. Put little rocks in there. But I'm still going to cut some more roots off. So let me get a close-up of this root structure. We're going to get a little bit of this lower, so this is a little bit thinner. We'll keep this spread out pretty much the way it is. But we got some roots that are just dangling out like this. This big long one here comes off and feeds off from right up in here. So we're going to go ahead and cut some of those off. This one right here comes out and then goes way straight down. And it's a real hard root, and it connects down in here. And we've got a big old chunk of root down here. That's this guy right here. Comes down here, and we're going to knob off some of that as well. And then it'll continue to grow feeder roots off it, like this guy here and this guy here. And we're just going to try to do a little bit of cleaning up on some of these roots. Some of them are just a little bit long. So as they're so the big ones I want to cut down here. You can't quite see because of the dirt. So there's the bottom of those I just cut off. So we're going to be looking for some of those too to make this thing a little bit thinner on the bottom. And these roots will fan out and get some more root ramification as it's in its new pot. These definitely were cut at one time, but I'm not sure when the last time they were cut. So I've got this big root right here, and I've got these little roots right here, and depending upon how this all averages out, we might cut some of those off once they're in the pot. Got this guy right here that's wrapped around this big cluster right here, and it goes way over here. And we can cut some of that off, and then hopefully it'll just continue to grow out. Obviously by that click, we had a real thick one there. I'm just going to bring my pot back. And with a little bit of dirt in there, that's going to be, a little bit of soil rather, that's going to be a good spot right there, I think. I don't want to go too much further. I want to make sure that this is a new plant to me, so I want to make sure that this thing is going to survive and do well. Okay, so we have a pretty big pot. It's a little bit big this way. There's going to be some gaps in here. But the roots will have some room to grow, and we hope this thing thrives in its new home here with me. And so we have to find what we think is going to be a front to this tree. We got some movement over here from the trunk. This is the part of that trunk that has that real hole in it. If we put this thing over this way and angle it, I got this nice flare here, and it goes into the ground, and it kind of comes out right here, back to the side here. Kind of a gnarly trunk here that might sit pretty good in the soil with some exposed roots, not too bad. This has some pretty cool root structure this direction, but this comes kind of right at us, and then this tree branch comes right at us. We don't want that, but if we go a little bit to the side, now again we have a little bit of movement here with this root down here, which might get real close to that soil line though, and we have all this and then this bump on this side, and the tree would slant over to that side. The worst feature of that is up top, because we have all these cuts that will heal and go away someday. We have to figure out what kind of cuts we're going to make down the road. I might trim some of these to make them a little bit less of an eyesore, and we just have to kind of see what's going to come back this year, what kind of growth we're going to get. I tend to like this side better for a front. I'll put over on this side, and again, I'm going to slant it this way because of this nice root right here that goes all the way down to here. And if I trim some of these upper roots here, we'll be able to hide that or have it sticking up above the soil just a little bit. So I'm going to do that now. And actually, I'm going to get my pot ready. I have to cover up my holes, and we'll do that first and be back in a second. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 to wrap this thing around and keep it nice and secure. I got some of my bonsai soil in there. I'm going 1/3 akadama, 1/3 pumice, and 1/3 lava rock in my bonsai tree today. Again, this is a crepe myrtle, and I want it to angle a little bit. So I'm going to get down in there. I want it to end up somewhere right about there. And then we're going to have this nice curve up here, and we got this nice branch coming up this way, and we'll see where we have some growth. We don't have any tree branches on this side of the tree at this for this current with the way it's looking, so we'll see what happens with early spring growth and see if any back budding happens in there. But for right now, I think I'm going to go with this pattern of the tree. Okay, so we have to kind of secure this. So sometimes, depending upon how much root structure is left in dirt and soil, I could go just straight across and tie it down. In this case, I think I'm going to go kitty corner to kitty corner. Now I don't want to come across the front of the tree here, so I'm going to go in the back for this first connection. And I'm going to go back over to this one, and I'm going to bring it all the way back. And I'm actually going to show you the camera here. I'm going to go through this root system. I got a couple of roots that are sticking straight up and then bending straight down. I'm going to leave them for now. I'm going to put this underneath. So it's coming up from the front underneath these guys right here. Alright. When that thing gets to where I want it to go, I'm going to pull it through, and then we're going to kind of secure it to this guy. And obviously it took a little bit too much wire this time, but I can always recycle my wire for putting in more mesh, smaller branches. so I will save these for later use. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit more of my soil in on this back side, because I don't want to lose the direction of my tree. And about there. Alright, now that it's in place, I can go ahead and grab my wires and start twisting this first one into place. Remember, we're always lifting up and twisting at the same time, lifting up while we twist, so as to make the connection on the bottom tighter. Now I can kind of lift this one by itself, but I have no structure right here. So I'm just going to hold off right there. Now I'm going to bring the second one right here through the front, but I don't want to damage this root or this root, so again I'm going to go underneath and find out where it pokes through. And if you can see here, I'm going to pull some roots out of here that are tangled up in here. I want these roots to grow. You want a radial pattern, so I'm going to try to move some of these roots that got kind of trapped with this wire, put them over the wire, let them grow outwards. And then I will connect that one down here and start an early twist. Cut off my extra, save some bigger pieces. Now I probably can lift this because I've got wire on both sides, but I haven't tightened it down real tight. So I have this where I want it. Go ahead and pull and twist, pull and twist, pull and twist. This is copper wire, so real strong. I'm going to pull and twist on this guy again. I got a lot of extra wire here again. Cut that off. I can lift the whole thing up. Now, there's not as much soil in there yet, so it's a little bit lighter weight, but that's going to keep the tree from blowing around in the wind, and that's good enough for me right now. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I have my roots growing where I want them to grow. So again, if I can pluck any roots and make sure they're going the direction I want them to go, right here, this guy right here, look at it, all tucked in there. I was able to pull him out and let him grow and get some feeder roots off of him. So we want to undo some of the roots that I just tied down a little bit. There they go. Now they're on the outside of that wire. That wire will be a challenge to find someday, but I'd rather have strong radial roots than worry about that right now. And now, this one's just too much on the surface. Cutting that one right out. This is the back of the tree, so I'm not too worried about these roots. We'll tuck them in. This one's growing kind of more straight up. I'd like these to bend more. So now I'm just going to cut some roots here and let them grow towards the edge of the pot. And whenever they're loose and free, I'm going to let them go. Go back down. This one again right here. This one right here is growing straight up from deep down in there. I don't want that one there. I don't want this little one here. And depending upon where the line of the soil comes, I'm going to tuck these down in here. I don't even know if I'm going to want some of these roots here. know if I want those yet. So let's fill it up with some soil. I have all my tools laid out and I still lose my tools. There it is. So get this first batch down in there. So we're going to try not to damage roots, but we're going to try to stuff these rocks, these lava rocks, the pumice and the akadama, get them tucked into the root system so we don't have air pockets in here. We don't want air pockets. We want a nice blend of water and air for our trees, and so we want to have as little air pockets as possible. There's a big pocket right down underneath there. Yeah, stuff them in there with your fingers, stuff them in there with the chopstick. So we're doing some nipping and tucking. Almost a gallon of soil in this pot. So, at first glance, not too bad here. What I got here is my movement, and I got this trunk going down into the ground with this big trunk, big root here. Hopefully this root system right here will stay down with the rocks and grow down a little bit further. I think I'll just cut that off. There we go. That one I can punch down with my finger. So I'm just cleaning it up, getting rid of some of these roots that just are too much on the surface. And as we water this thing, we'll probably find a few other little stragglers we can cut. So let's do that. Let's get a bit of good watering. So I will put this back in the cold frame for a few weeks here as we finish out March. And as soon as the weather starts getting where we can take these things out, we'll be able to put them outside and keep them on our benches for the nice warm days, and maybe put them back inside for cold nights if we get there. But for a couple more weeks, I just need these roots to stay moist in that 40-degree cold frame outside that I have. Alright, let's see if we're going through yet. Oh yeah, here it comes pouring out. Alright. There we have the Crepe Myrtle all in a new container. Nice little movement to it. It was in a round pot before. I can show you the before and after. We got a little movement to it here. We got this root that's not coming straight out at us, with this nice angle here. This branch coming this root this way. Hopefully we'll get some more ramification now in this new pot. We'll repot it in a couple of years. Before I do send it off to the garage, I probably going to cut some of these branches just to get a little bit shorter. There's probably going to be a fair amount of dieback just based on what I can see in the tree. So, no real rhyme or reason for me doing this right now other than just to shorten things up just a little bit. And we'll hope for, again, the growth, and we'll see what happens with the trees. This is a new species for me, and I noticed that this naturally has a lot of curve to it, depending on where it was in the yard and what kind of sun I got. I was reaching for that sun possibly, or they naturally grow that way. We'll find out. It's going to be a fun year. Can't wait to see what this one does.